Hey guys, Lawrence here, and welcome to another edition of what we like to call the comment section. For those of you who might not know what the comment section is exactly, it's where I take a look at the comments from the previous week's video and answer the questions that were contained within them. Let's talk about those comments, eh? Go! What are your thoughts on CGI, and have you read or watched Berserk? In terms of Berserk, I've only seen limited amounts of it, and I read a couple of chapters. But really, most of the things I get from Berserk were from HBI's Berserk Abridged, I have to be honest. And when it comes to CGI, I feel like it can be used with good taste, and nowadays, it's really good. And now it's getting to the point where you can actually convey emotion through it quite easily, relatively, that any kind of small outfit or animation studio can really make compelling stuff. In Dragon Ball R&R, will we see an episode focused on how Raddatz and Launch met and all their wedding? Probably not in season 1 of R&R. Maybe I might do some kind of mini side comic or something like that, or just some kind of little mini sketch thing. Nothing like a full episode, but maybe just like a 3-minute or 4-minute clip, just to tide things over between episodes. Since Joseph is your favourite main Jojo, I'm curious on who's your favourite main Jojo villain from parts 1 through 7. I hate to be really boring, but that goes back to part 2 as well, and that's the Pillar Men. Because the Pillar Men were just abject pillars of strength, literally. And the relationship that Wamu had with Joseph, that it wasn't just a simple villain and hero, it was like Wamu wanted to go, Joseph, I know you can be really strong. Test that. Prove that to me. And I will honor you and respect you for all eternity. And that's just like, wow. There's an anime called Elfin Lead. Have you heard of it? And if so, are you ever going to watch it? If you've already watched it, what are your thoughts on it? I have indeed watched it, and it's actually one of the animes that Philly and I bonded over. She'd seen it as well, and she absolutely loved the music, and she did admit it was pretty violent and intense, and it definitely is. It's not something for the faint of heart, but it is pretty brutal, and back when I was like 18, 19 when I first saw it, I was like, whoa, that is awesome. And yeah, it is pretty shocking, and it's very jarring. And there is a particular scene which is just like, okay, that's not cool. If you've seen it, you'll know what I mean. What's the weirdest experience you've had with a fan? And are you going to watch Toy Story 4? Well, I actually kind of covered that in my weirdest and most unique convention appearance story videos that I did a while back, the animation one, the story time. I really wish more people watched it because I think just YouTube buried it, and on my main channel, no one really cared. And that was really a shame because it did such a great job on it, so I'll leave a link to it somewhere up here. And as for Toy Story 4, yeah, I'm gonna go see it. I mean, when I first heard that there was gonna be a Toy Story 4, I was like, no, Toy Story 3 was perfect. But, you know what, I'm kind of curious to see what they can do with this. I just feel really bad for Toy Story 4 that it got completely decimated by Detective Pikachu. Disney got spooked, and that is pretty big. Will you start Bad Fanfiction Theater back up? I don't know about a whole season exactly, but maybe if I can find where I put all my gear for Gamington Smythe, I might do like a one-off, because there are a couple of things from the original Season 5 that Frob's done sketches for that I really want to kind of bring back up to the fore. So who knows? I might do a little special. But one thing's for sure, it'll definitely be on this channel. Have you ever gotten into drawing and making art by yourself? Yeah, when I was younger, maybe like between the ages of 15 and 18, I was really big into drawing and I really wanted to learn. And I wouldn't say that I was terrible, but I was very generic. And I used to just draw anime characters. I used to use Poser to try and get the posing right. And a lot of people would say, yeah, the coloring's really good, but the actors and the characters just look really stiff. When I applied for university, I mainly just showed my art of anime girls. And I'm like, dude, why did you do that? I mean, it doesn't really matter now, because I still got in anyway. I mean, I'm just glad I grew up and actually got over that. There is actually a DeviantArt page that still has nearly all of those artworks, so maybe when I hit 500,000 subscribers on the main channel, I'll do a video about it. Have you watched any of the Gundam series? If so, what do you think of it? If not, I recommend starting with Gundam Unicorn. Okay, duly noted about that one. But as for the Gundam series, I don't know. I didn't really get into it early because I saw promos for Gundam Wing back when CNX and AKA were a thing on Cartoon Network. It just didn't really grip me. It felt a little too serious. It's just at that point where I'm just too bamboozled by the choice out there. I mean, where do you even start? Well, at least the unicorn thing is, you know, definite help in terms of where to go, but still. There's a lot of series out there. Have you been to any theme parks? If so, which are your favourites and why? I gotta be honest, I'm not really a fan of theme parks, and that's mainly due to the fact that I really don't like big crowds, and I'm not really one for roller coasters, and roller coasters are like one of the main things, like the thrill rides. I don't really get into those. The only one that I was really into was X No Way Out, and that was the thing at Thorpe Park, and it was one of those things where you were in the dark and you went backwards. I don't know, there was just something about going backwards and I couldn't see where I was going. It just felt, you know, a little less scary. Probably a stupid question, but since you go to that many, what's your favourite con of the year? And what's been your favourite ever con you've been to? Well, I don't really like to pick favourites, you know, in terms of an ultimate favourite, but the weirdest and the most legendary one I'd been to in terms of the actual scale was Phoenix Comic Con. I never thought I'd get invited to a Comic Con of all things as a proper guest on the docket, and that was really, really cool. Basically being on the same billing as Ron Perlman and Sylvester Stallone and Billy Piper, that's just like, wow, that is really cool. And it was also pretty memorable because that was the first time I ever worked on a booth with the Team 4-Star guys. That was when we were actually starting to do that about 3 years ago. And it was actually one of the first times I actually got to connect with HBI2K properly, and that was a great time. But in terms of my favourite con of the year, it would have to be Akuma Con, and that's in Galway, Ireland. I don't know, it's just a really good warm-up convention, if you know what I mean. It gets me going for the year, and it's a small-ish con, and it's been growing over the last 9-10 years. I just really hold it dear to my heart, and every time I go back to Galway, it's a nice 3-hour coach ride from Dublin to there. It's just, you know, it makes me think, okay, 2019, let's go. Do you ever read poetry or lyrics? Do you ever wish you had other writers to create stories with? Also, as an artist, I greatly appreciate your what-ifs. I used to tell my younger brother never-ending stories when going to bed. Oh, thank you very much. In terms of poetry, I don't really read that much these days, but when I was studying English literature at college, I did get into like John Keats and stuff like that. But I actually did win an award when I was like in elementary school, maybe 7th grade. It was a trophy for recitation, or poetry reading, and I read Mungo, Jerry and Rumpelteazer, and I won a trophy for that. That was the first time I ever won anything of that significance, and there was usually just this one kid that would win everything and it was real smarty pants, but I managed to get one over in him, and it was like, oh yeah, that felt good. In your free time, who do you watch on YouTube if you watch anyone at all? Oh yeah, I watch a lot of people. I mean, people like Cat Icarus, there's Marcus Brownlee, Jonathan Morrison, Austin Evans. Oh, there's so many people I watch and it's just like, Lamar Wilson. Mostly it's tech tubers, and yeah, of course there's Geekdom, there's Quaman, there's a lot of DB tubers as well. It's like a mixture of those, really. What is it like in a voice acting session? I know Kaiser edits everything, but what's the process for you acting as Goku and Gohan? Kaiser directs as well, and usually when we're on a recording session when I'm here in the UK, we usually just meet up on Skype, now Discord, because Skype is really aging fast, and we just go through the script, and Kaiser knows I know Goku and Gohan in and out, so we mainly just talk about the certain intonations and the way we convey a line. But I think it really helps also because Kaiser writes mostly for Goku and Gohan, so he knows exactly what he wants, and therefore I know exactly how those characters are meant to speak. And it really makes any kind of improv really sound genuine. What is your opinion on the Indian audience for anime? Well, I don't really know much about the Indian audience, but I do know that it's really coming to the fore right now, and I absolutely welcome it. I'm very curious to see any of you guys if you're from India, and if you're watching, well, welcome and thank you for tuning in. I really want to get into the community there and just see it grow, and just these emerging markets, it's just wonderful. Getting anime out there even more. Did you ever play Metal Gear Solid? If so, what is your favorite game of the saga? I would say hands down it would have to be Metal Gear Solid 3. And that's just down to the survival mechanics, and it was just so different from Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, because I played that. I played Twin Snakes, then 3, and then back to 2 for some reason, and then I played 4. And I've really only just scratched the surface of 5. What do you think makes a compelling character backstory? I wrote a lot of character narratives for my D&D campaign, and I love making stories for individuals with depth and dimensions. By the way, love the power couple vibes I get when you talk about Philly. You guys seem like a great pair. She pulls me up and keeps my feet on the ground, so that means I don't get too arrogant sometimes or too pompous. I mean, I am quite pompous at times, and I need someone to check me. So I gotta say, Philly, thanks for that. And in terms of a compelling character backstory, it's to not make it too bland and have it so that means your character has flaws and quirks. Something that doesn't make them just 100% pristine, because that just isn't realistic at all. You gotta give them some kind of, battle scars. Something like that. It doesn't have to be ultimately tragic, although admittedly with a lot of my characters I do tend to make their backstories quite tragic. But I try and make something that it just feels like they've had an adventure. What is your opinion on Smash Brothers? If you like it, who's your main? Oh yeah, I pretty much like it, but I didn't really play much of Smash 4 because, Wii U. And I didn't really get to play Brawl much either because our internet connection at the time was just so flaky and the internet security was so strict, the Wii couldn't get online, so therefore it just lost a lot of appeal for me. But whenever I did play, I would usually main Falco, and I think I've mained Falco since Melee. Before that it was Fox. So I tend to kind of gravitate towards those two, although I have to admit I really do like playing as Palutena. And now that Daisy's going to be in Ultimate, I'm probably going to try out Daisy, see what she's like. I tend to like the small, nimble characters that can jump around all the time. Have you ever broken a bone before? Oh yeah, I've broken both arms. And one time I fell off the back of a tricycle when I was 6, and the other time when I was 9 years old, and I was pretty big. I was trying to run to, we were playing cricket on a concrete surface, and another guy just pushed me, so that means I would make it over the line, but ultimately I landed on my arm, and then, yeah, I spent a lot of time in the emergency room that night. What type of editor do you use, and is it free? I use Adobe Premiere Pro, and honestly, it's not free. However, it is available on a subscription model, and I have to admit, that is far more accessible than things used to be. Because I remember the Master Collection, or even just getting Premiere individually, it would cost hundreds of pounds. The Master Collection over £2,000. That is egregious. So this monthly model, it actually works out far cheaper and you get automatic updates. And I'm not sponsored by Adobe or anything. I just think it's really, really forward-thinking. And I like having automatic updates. What is your favorite Pokemon and thoughts on Detective Pikachu trailer? In terms of the Detective Pikachu trailer, I like it. It's quite bold, it's quite direct, and it's something different. The fact that the Pokemon company is overseeing it means it can be genuine. I'm excited, I'm positive for it. And in terms of my favorite Pokemon, it would have to be this guy. It's a little Dratini. Yeah, it's a shiny Dratini as well. My friends Iron Manda and Small Fry Creations, they made this for me when they found out that I like Dratini. So yeah, it's a Dratini plushie. I like Dratini. As for other Pokemon, I really, really adore Gardevoir. And if I had to have a main nowadays, it would be Gardevoir. Well, yeah, Dragonair and Dratini would definitely be in my squad. So there we have it. Thank you very much for all of your comments and questions. If you'd like to have your question answered on the next edition of the comment section, feel free to leave it down below and I will read it, and if it is chosen, it will be featured. So thank you very much for your time. I hope to hear from you very soon with your questions, and until the next one guys, hope you're well, and one is glad to be of service.